Right, so there have been some developments surrounding the possibility of Jeremy Corbyn running as an independent to retain his seat of Islington North, the constituency where he has been the MP for the last 41 years, knowing, as we did, that Starmer was blocking him from running as a Labour candidate again, having singled him out for that special treatment. But of course we now have Diane Abbott in exactly the same boat too. Both of the left, both suspended arbitrarily on Starmer's say-so, abusing his executive power, keeping both in the party but blocking them from sitting as such in Parliament and by default standing for Parliament again. We know Corbyn is being left in that position. Starmer has said as much, but Diane Abbott is another story, and to do that to her in light of recent abuse will blow up in Starmer's face in my view. However, when it comes to Labour therefore selecting a replacement for Corbyn to stand for Labour, much discussion has come from, frankly, who dare go for it given that Corbyn is so popular locally? Who would be foolish enough to give it a try? Well, fortunately for Team Keith, there is at least one person sufficiently desperate enough to become a Labour MP to have a crack at it, it seems. So has Starmer finally found his useful idiot to challenge Jeremy Corbyn? Right, so the will he or won't he saga of Jeremy Corbyn running as an independent come the next general election. To do so, he would have to finally formally resign his membership of the Labour Party. He is still a member, he just isn't allowed to sit as one. A party he has been a member of for most of his own life. He's 74 now and has been a member since he was 16. So it would be a huge wrench, despite all that has been done to him, as I'm sure you can appreciate. But we do appear to have some new developments on this. Corbyn has refused to rule out standing again. We've had this ongoing storyline, if you like. It's like a bit of a soap opera, it's been a bit, really, hasn't it? Will he or won't he? He's also always shunned the idea of ever retiring, so the debate about what he'd do, knowing both of those things, has had people pondering for months. Will he stand again? Would he go for the London mayoralty instead? Well, he didn't do that. But now apparently inquiries have been made to a printing firm asking if they would be prepared to produce election materials for an independent candidate in Islington North, which includes some 40,000 leaflets, 2,000 posters, 5,000 round candidate stickers, and 500 lawn signs. So very much on the scale of a full general election campaign. Now, all of this information has come out by way of leaked emails, which Corbyn has denied sanctioning. However, he has issued one of those cagey statements he's become known for following these emails coming out and the details they contain, purportedly leaked from a local activist. And Corbyn's statement on this, brief as it is, reads, "Jeremy is immensely proud to be the MP for Islington North and has spent the past 40 years fighting alongside his community for a better world. He is focused on that work, campaigning on the issues facing his constituents and doing his utmost to help those in need. That is what he will continue to do." I genuinely think he's enjoying keeping people wondering, because that statement does nothing to dismiss the notion he's still going to run. But of course, with an election announcement due at some point this year, he can still have some fun with it for now. But sooner or later he's going to have to fess up, isn't he? He's going to have to tell us one way or the other what he plans to do. Meanwhile, of course, Starmer's Labour need a candidate to stand against him. If he chooses to stand, that is. They need a candidate to stand for Islington North at any rate. And they are, according to right-wing papers, bullish about taking this seat off Corbyn, still believing in those national polling figures, despite it being made abundantly clear to them in Rochdale that a well-known political candidate can and will give them an absolute spanking, and actually a local candidate just standing on local issues can too. Labour, let's not forget, actually came fourth there, behind both George Galloway and a local mechanic nobody around the country had ever heard of, and the Tories. They might say officially that they abandoned their candidate, but he still appeared as Labour on the ballot because it was too late to change that, and the candidate in question kept on campaigning from that point onwards as an anti-Starmer candidate. So national figures are a nonsense, frankly, especially with a Labour Party, a Labour leader, as unpopular and widely disliked as Keir Starmer is. Notably right now amongst Muslim communities, but not exclusively so, and Rochdale proved that as well. A large Muslim community there, but 3/4 of the constituency are white. So no matter how publicly optimistic Labour might be saying they are, behind closed doors they know that to beat Corbyn they'd need to topple his 26,188 vote majority, a lot larger than the Rochdale majority Labour were defending and lost, and as much as some of that is likely attributable to the party, not the man, When you have a candidate as widely known as Corbyn, appreciated, respected, liked, unlike Starmer, when people will descend on Islington North from across the country to campaign for Corbyn as they will, it's little wonder Labour have struggled somewhat to find somebody willing to take Corbyn on. There has been one guy keen to have a crack up until now, a millionaire private health clinician and local Labour councillor called Praful Nargund, but his profile has remained a low one since I became aware of him last year. And can you imagine the optics of Labour putting a private health CEO up against Jeremy Corbyn? It's a seat they desperately want, but if they are being honest with themselves behind closed doors, they know they haven't a prayer if Corbyn stands. What they need is an idiot. What they need is a convenient patsy to take the fall for them. If they lose, they can blame the Burke they selected for being rubbish. If they win, well, let's just say if they pick who is being rumoured, I'll eat my shorts if he manages to get past selection. But if Starmer is truly looking for a willing and able fool to stand against Corbyn, aside from this chap Nargund anyway, there is one guy who is this desperate to become a Labour MP, has stood to be selected in several seats all around the country already. Such is his desperation. And he might just be desperate enough, combined with epic delusions of grandeur and a mightily high opinion of himself, to stand against Corbyn and think he can beat him. And that person is former BBC and Channel 4 journalist and former fake Corbyn supporter, Paul Mason. For those of us dreaming of a Labour rinsing at Corbyn's hands, please, God, let Labour select Paul Mason. This will be his fourth attempt to get selected to stand for Labour, having failed to make the shortlist in Stratford and Urmston in Greater Manchester. Then he tried again, failing to make the shortlist once more over in Sheffield Central, and then failing to even make the long list when he tried his luck in Wales instead in Mid and South Pembrokeshire. Well, now he's making all the right noises that he'd like to have a tilt at Islington North now. He'd been telling Corbyn not to stand for ages, and has also told him not to bother with setting up a new left party because the Starmer project is a better bet. Not if you're a lefty. It's not left, Paul, and neither are you. Nor were you when you pretended to be, when you pretended to support Jeremy Corbyn. Most of what Mason has been rabbiting on about of late is his obsession with not enough support going to Ukraine against Russia. In fact, if you look at his Twitter timeline, it's pretty much all he ever talks about. Following George Galloway's win in Rochdale, he advocated for him to be treated like Greece treated the neo-Nazi movement Golden Dawn. In other words, lock them up. What for? What would you arrest Galloway for here? The crime of winning? He's accused Brazil's President Lula of being a Stalinist for daring surmise Russia pulling out of Crimea would amount to Russian surrender, which is, of course, what kicked off everything between Russia and Ukraine to begin with, and Lula is clearly also right. But he drew an insane web diagram as well, which connected left Labour agencies and Muslim communities with Russia and anti-NATO organisations, and it was massively amusing to see him bring up NATO when he himself has been accused of being a go-between between Labour and Kiev, and by virtue of that daft diagram being part of a covert intelligence agency plot to bring down the left-wing news site The Grey Zone. It is also regularly alleged that he has links to MI5, but he gets very twitchy and litigious if you mention that. So all in all, we have a warmongering, possible intelligence asset, a laughing stock, a guy who quite enjoys calling others cranks when he should look in the mirror, in my view, before doing so. A guy who has repeatedly failed to impress Labour around the country, and with Starmer's factional control over selections, if he wanted Mason as an MP, and Mason really has been humping his leg to try and get a spot somewhere, Starmer would have imposed him somewhere already by now. Perhaps this will be his time, perhaps for the sake of standing a candidate certain to lose to an independent Jeremy Corbyn, Starmer will just throw Mason under the bus. The thing is, Mason will probably be ecstatic just to end up under those proverbial wheels. I truly hope Starmer picks him for the entertainment value alone. I reckon Mason could be so bad he'd take Labour into deposit-losing territory. But I feel the private health guy is probably the better bet. Still, Corbyn making noises that he's going to go for it, as circumstantial as things remain right now, will give a lot of people something to cheer about, and it will piss Starmer and co off big time. Mason's beef with Corbyn goes back still further, though. Last year saw the film Jeremy Corbyn, The Big Lie, getting screened. We heard a lot about that. Getting banned from being screened in certain places. Glastonbury banned it after all. But one of those bodies that also banned it was Sharon Graham's Unite Union, banning it from being shown in any Unite properties. Now, Graham's tenure in charge of Unite has been marred by her pro-Starmer ties, authoritarianism, and currently she's getting sued in Ireland for turning a trade union into a bad employer. But the banning of the film by Unite was apparently on the say-so of Paul Mason too, as this video recommendation will tell you all about. I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.